In a world where borders are both battlegrounds and bargaining chips, misinformation about immigration policy isn't just misleading, it's dangerous. Former U.S. President Donald Trump continues to promote what he calls a big, beautiful bill on immigration reform, praising it as a complete fix to what he describes as a border invasion. But a detailed breakdown by policy analysts, including in a recent CNN segment, reveals that this bill falls dramatically short not only in content, but in truth. And the global stakes are high. Trump's supporters and campaign surrogates tout the bill as a comprehensive solution to border insecurity, illegal immigration, and asylum abuse. But what's really inside this legislative proposal? Not much. As dissected by immigration experts, the bill lacks funding for long-term border infrastructure, offers no pathway to citizenship for undocumented migrants, and skirts responsibility for modernizing the asylum system. Even key provisions like enforcement technology and deportation protocols are vague or duplicative of existing laws. Critically, the bill sidesteps two pressing issues: legal immigration reform and long-term humanitarian policy. It doesn't expand legal pathways for migrant workers or family reunification, nor does it address the crisis-level backlogs in immigration courts. Furthermore, many of the solutions it proposes, such as nationwide e-verify and aggressive deportation practices, have been either tried and failed or deemed unconstitutional in previous iterations. This gap between rhetoric and reality creates a dangerous feedback loop, one where campaign slogans are mistaken for policy and real immigration challenges are buried beneath performative politics. Why should the world care about what one U.S. politician says about immigration? Because when the United States, historically viewed as a global benchmark for immigration and refugee policy, promotes exaggerated or empty legislative efforts, it reverberates far beyond its borders. U.S. border practices influence enforcement strategies in Latin America, funding decisions at the UNHCR, and migration pressure along routes from North Africa to Europe. U.S. policy shifts, real or perceived, they must adjust their domestic strategies and budgets. A bill that promises mass deportation but lacks implementation planning may trigger panic migration, destabilize border towns, or disrupt remittance pipelines critical to regional economies. Diplomatic relationships also fray when U.S. partners are blindsided by rhetoric that contradicts the realities on the ground. The bill's omissions, particularly around refugee protection, legal migration avenues, and multilateral cooperation, signal a move toward isolationist policy dressed in populist packaging. That sets a dangerous tone in a year where over 300 million people globally are on the move, many fleeing war, famine, or climate-driven displacement. For millions of migrants, many of them fleeing persecution or economic collapse, policy clarity isn't a political luxury, it's a matter of survival. Trump's bill, with its vague language and missing legal architecture, leaves asylum seekers in limbo and border communities in chaos. Aid agencies, from Médecins Sans Frontières to the Red Cross, have warned that policies shaped by fear and fiction not only violate human rights but also make already fragile systems more prone to abuse. Perhaps most worrying is the precedent it sets, that a political figure can generate global headlines and legislative momentum around a bill that fixes little and misleads many. If left unchallenged, this encourages a governance style where optics override outcomes and where humanitarian issues are weaponized for electoral gain. Trump's big, beautiful bill may rally his base and dominate media cycles, but it does little to address the complexity of modern migration. In fact, by failing to invest in root cause diplomacy, legal reform, and international cooperation, it threatens to make the problem worse. Watch the full breakdown to understand what's missing and why it matters to the entire world.
Moment, the biggest tax cut in American history is still on track to become law by July the 4th. Now, this would be a monumental achievement for the president and another huge promise made and huge promise kept. Now, don't get me wrong, bill's not perfect. there are provisions and policies that I prefer weren't in there. For example, SALT deductions, state and local tax deductions. Well, that rewards blue states for electing tax and spend and high regulating politicians. But unfortunately, that's how the sausage gets made in the swamp, if it's going to get made at all. And by the way, Lindsey Graham kept saying, no, we're going to pass this and we'll have another reconciliation bill and cut spending even further. Love to hear that. No one person, and I said this when I had the Senate town hall and the House town hall, none of you all understand, none of you are going to get everything you want. But at the same time, this legislation is packed with massive, huge, important wins for you, the American people. For starters, Donald Trump's 2017 tax cut, it will be extended. It will be the largest tax cut in American history. Democrats will be voting against the largest tax cut in American history and for the largest tax increase in American history. The bill also eliminating taxes on tips, taxes on overtime. It lowers taxes on Social Security. It tackles waste, fraud, abuse, corruption in Medicaid, and even creates a work requirement for able-bodied Americans now enrolled in the program. The bill also extends the full child tax credit and standard deduction. It allocates funds for Donald Trump's Golden Dome Air Defense Project. May go down one day when we're all long dead and gone as his greatest legacy and save millions of lives. They mocked strategic defense when Reagan brought it up, and they called it Star Wars, and look what it's been able to do to protect Israel. There are other funds for military modernization. I call it the next generation of weaponry, desperately needed because our military has been completely neglected the last 4 years under Biden and Harris. It also has funds for desperately needed border security and the deportations of all these criminals and terrorists, murderers, rapists, cartel members, gang members, other violent criminals, drug dealers in our country, and will put America on a path towards energy dominance and all the wealth that will come with that. The lifeblood of every economy on the face of the earth. We will be an energy-rich nation. And meanwhile, Biden-era climate rules and regulations, they will be repealed. The green tax credit will be eliminated. Biden's student loan scheme and scam, whatever you want to call it, will officially be over. And despite all of the fear-mongering from Democrats, here's what the bill doesn't do. It does not decrease Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, or Social Security benefits. In fact, those earning Social Security, for example, they will take home more money thanks to a reduction in taxes. Medicare payments will increase while Medicaid recipients are protected from fraud. The big, beautiful bill also does not increase the deficit. Instead, the deficit will go down around a little shy of $2 trillion. That's to begin with, according to estimates. But we know that when Reagan cut taxes and President Trump cut taxes, cutting taxes in Reagan's case doubled revenues to the federal government, except Congress spent $1.25 for every new dollar they brought in, because that's what happens when you cut taxes. It stimulates the economy, creates jobs, takes people off the welfare rolls. Guess what? People are working. Now they're paying taxes, and that will benefit working class Americans the most in this bill, increasing their take-home pay. They're all getting more money back, especially if they earn tips on overtime or rely on Social Security. Democrats will vote against all of these benefits for the people that really make this country great, hard-working men and women, and this will solidify the Democratic Party and their positions as nothing but woke, out of touch, coastal elitists. That's who they are. That defines their politics. Why would you vote against cutting tax on tips and overtime and the largest tax decrease in history? Why do you want the largest tax increase in history? Why didn't they secure the border? Why won't they vote to secure the border? You know, why won't they vote for energy dominance so we can be an energy-rich country, high-paying career jobs in the energy industry? On top of that, had the $10 trillion in manufacturing commitments President Trump has gotten from companies and countries. Wow, the American people are on the verge of a level of prosperity they have never experienced before. But the so-called champions of the working class and the Democratic Party, they are nowhere to be found when it really matters. Tonight, it really matters. President Trump, he is the driving force behind this legislation. So, of course, they can't give him a win. They'll never support it. It was like last week they were lying about the attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. Oh, those 14 bunker buster bombs, 30,000-pound bombs. They did no damage. Didn't work. and trashing our military in the process as they work with skill, precision, courage under fire. I mean, unbelievable. What a success. They are unwilling to work with Republicans because they hate Trump. They don't care for working men and women in this country, and they just care about their woke radical agenda. Instead, as we speak, they're now lining up to support an actual communist to be New York City's next mayor, if elected, Zohran Mamdani, also known as Marxist Mamdani on this show, would be the most radical, extreme mayor in American history. And he's competing with a lot of close, seconds. For example, the mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Bass out there. This is not an exaggeration. It is not a smear. Marxist Mamdani is a proud communist. He wants the government to seize private property, control the means of production. Don't believe me? Look for yourself.
It is very critical for all of us to remember what it is that we are fighting for, and to remember that our agenda is an agenda that must not be dictated by calculus, but by conviction. And what I mean by that is that the many things that we believe, some of them are already popular in this moment right now, right? If we're talking about the cancellation of student debt, if we're talking about Medicare for all, these are issues which have the groundswell of popular support across this country. But then there are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it is the end goal of seizing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment.
End goal, seizing the means of production, is literally what Fidel Castro did in Cuba, what the Soviet Union did during the Bolshevik Revolution. But of course, that's just, Marxist Mamdani's ultimate goal. In the meantime, he's plotting a massive new tax on so-called white neighborhoods. Take a look for yourself.
Went on your website and realized there's a policy proposal that says your plan, and I'm going to quote it for folks, is to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. Explain why you are bringing race into your tax proposal.
That is just a description of what we see right now. It's not driven by race. It's more of an assessment of what neighborhoods are being undertaxed versus overtaxed.
Whiter neighborhoods, not driven by race. Let's play Jeopardy at home. If you single out and discriminate against one race, what do you at home call that? Just asking. Another prime target of Mamdani's Marxist revolution in New York City are the many billionaires who live and work in Manhattan. As a matter of fact, they create a lot of high-paying career jobs for people so they can pay those exorbitant rent prices and high taxes for the insane socialist policies that exist now. Take a look.
You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Fair to each New York City resident according to their need. From each New York City, resident according to their ability. In other words, Mamdani would like the government to seize billions in, quote, equity, because it's not fair right now, in stocks and cash, from billionaires on Wall Street, people like Elon Musk. Because in his view, the government can spend Elon's money much better. And when he gets that money and he gives people free stuff, he thinks the odds are much higher that they're going to keep him in power instead of, investing in cutting edge technology, SpaceX, Starlink, Neuralink, maybe to help the blind see and people with spinal cord injuries walk. What do you think millionaires and billionaires in New York City are going to do if Marxist Mamdani is elected? They are going to pack and leave, and that means working class New Yorkers are going to be losing their jobs in droves. So, it's unclear how he plans to pay for all of this when they say bye-bye, but Mamdani is promising free buses, free childcare, free health care, a government-mandated rent-freeze, government-controlled grocery stores. They run everything else so well. How about they work on their schools that are a disaster in New York City, and price controls all throughout the city? He has also called for the NYPD to be defunded. That's right, and replaced with social workers. How's that going to work out? Think about that. Somebody's deranged, has mental problems, let's say injected heroin, fentanyl, or cocaine into their body, and we're going to have a social worker. I'm here to ask you, what is causing this moment? Did you have a bad childhood? Good luck with that. He once said that violent crime is a little more than a social construct, and that real violence is waged by judges and prosecutors locking up convicted felons. That's why he would end cash bail and let the criminals run free. And like most other Marxists in the U.S., it appears that Mamdani wants to wipe Israel off the map. You know, chanting people in New York and on college campuses, halls of Congress, from the river to the sea, and doesn't seem to have a problem with a global intifada, which is a holy war against non-Muslims. He had a chance on NBC this weekend, not one, not two, 3 opportunities to condemn global intifada. He refused to do so. By the way, Hakeem Jeffries, if you're watching, he needs to clarify this. He did. Obviously, he won't condemn it. There's your answer. Take a look.
Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the intifada?
That's not language that I use.
Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me.
Quickly, for the people who care about the language and who feel really concerned by that phrase, why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president who is looking to do those very kinds of things.
Would he condemn racism, sexism? I bet he would. It's not good, to say the least. Make him an honorary squad member right now. And like many other radical socialists, Marxists, statists, Mamdani is actually from not so humble roots. His parents, incredibly successful. Guess what? They're also very wealthy. He lived a very privileged life. He wanted for nothing. But now we learn he seeks to overthrow the system that enabled his lifestyle, all while pretending to be a struggling immigrant who eats with his hands. We have proof. Take a look.
This is how we defeat the occupation. Style.
So the third holy grail of taboos in American politics, you have socialism, you have Islam, and then you have Palestine. And you are really going for the trifecta.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. Tell me, why is Palestine a part of your politics?
When you grow up as someone, especially in the third world, you have a very different understanding of the Palestinian struggle. It is one that is framed in terms of empathy and solidarity.
I would support taxpayer dollars going to a fork, but that's just my preference. If this guy's elected, it will not end well for New York. And like every other socialist hellhole, the people who will suffer the most are the ones that cannot and will not be able to afford.